Hi, I'm Larry and welcome back to my studio. Today we're going to continue working on our stable pots here, the writing stable. This is where I found them. And like I keep telling you, you'll hear this more than once, you always work from what is furthest back or underneath before working on something else. So before I put in any of the plants and things that are in these pots, I want to get the pots, at least where the plants are going to overlap, pretty much finished. Now, one of the things I'm going to be doing is with the highlighting, and I wanted to show you this first. This is just my dabble board here. It's just a painted out board. One of the things that I like to do before I start doing this is to show you the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. A lot of times if you mix either burnt sienna or orange or red, this is burnt sienna here, and I'll just put a little bit of, this is just naphthol red over here. If you mix these with white, what you get, oops, that had a little bit more of the red on it than I wanted. That's okay. It'll still work. You end up getting kind of a type color. You don't get a real bright color. Same with the red. If you mix red and white, you get pink instead of a warmer color, a sunlit color. So in order to get a more sunlit color, here's my burnt sienna again. Rinse my brush, pick up a little of naphthol again. And after I rinse my brush, I always wipe it out. You may not always see that, but I am wiping it out. Now, instead of using white, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of orange. This makes it a little bit brighter, a little sunnier looking. Same with the red. You get this nice sunny red color. This is wet into wet. Both paints are wet. And if I need to make it even brighter, I can come in with yellow. This is just yellow on my brush. And just mix that into the color that I have there. That will give you a cleaner color rather than the white, which kind of gives it a chalky look. Here's the orange, yellow, and red together. Makes a nice, bright, sunny color for the red. So that's what I'm going to be doing on these pots, because they are mostly a burnt sienna color, and I need to put highlights on them. So just keep that in mind if you're working with red. You want to keep your color clean, either red or orange. You use the yellow. Yellow, you have to use white. But the burnt sienna and the orange work well if you use just a lighter version like a yellow or an orange. So this time, this is my number, I think this is my number 6 flat bristle brush or flat sable brush, and because I'm going to be getting into some more technical things where I need it to be a little more defined, I'm going to use that. So again, I'm going to pick up my burnt sienna. I'm down on my palette here picking up burnt sienna, a little bit of orange. And right above me, I have my my reference material. My reference material is always right where I can see it. And that way I kind of know what I'm doing. So let me test this. Now that's not bright enough, and I think I'm going to add some cadmium red to that. So cadmium red, burnt sienna, a little more orange. Test that. It always looks lighter on the palette, and then when you get it up there, it's not. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. And you'll notice that I just kind of tap and touch. There's a lot of texture to these pots, and so I just want to suggest these things. I don't necessarily need to lose all of that underpainting that I have, but I'm just going to come down here and just kind of tap and touch. There's going to be shadows on here I'll get to a little bit later. By kind of tapping and touching and leaving some of that underpainting come through, it makes it look like there's texture. Tap along the top edge here. Maybe a little, the sun's coming in from the left hand side, and so there's a little bit of sunlight on top of there. Now this other pot here, this one is a little bit different. It's mostly in shadow. So I'm going to take my orange and my cadmium red light and mix it into the color I have down there. And I'm going to look to see where I have some sunlight coming through. And I'm just going to like brush this on just in these places. Pull away from the edge where I see a little sun. Kind of streak this across. Now my paint is kind of a soft butter on here. Now this what I'm painting right now is actually what holds the pot up on the stand, but it's kind of the same color. It's been painted kind of that terracotta color. There's some light coming here. Just kind of dragging my brush so there's not a lot of paint coming off. Just kind of skimming, so it gives it kind of that look of light coming through trees that's not quite there. Now I want to get this done before I put the stand around this. A little bit of sun there. Come back to this pot. This is kind of an impressionistic look. My style has changed over the years, and that's fine. The more I do plein air painting, the more stylistic I get. But you know, we all want to try and loosen up a little bit, and for me that's kind of where I'm going with this. So now I'm down here on my palette with just picking up some gesso with a little bit of yellow and a little touch of orange. I want to make a really bright sunny color. Now this is just kind of a tint. It's very light. And I just want to drag this color on the ground. on my pots. This just gives a little more light. I don't want it all over everything. There will be some shadows that go over some of this. But see how it breaks up down here at the bottom? I have very little paint on my brush, and I'm really trying to be light with my touch. I can turn it on its edge and just kind of lightly do that. A little bit of stronger light right back behind there. That puts a little bit of separation between the two pots. Remember that acrylics will dry a little bit darker, and so it might look real bright when you put it on, but it will dry darker. See, this is starting to dry a little darker right in here. But I'm barely touching, I'm just skimming the surface of the canvas here. Okay, so I'm going to quit because I want to refocus the camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, I wanted to refocus up here on the top of this front pot because it has some shadows and some kind of reflected light in here, and I wanted to show you how you paint white. You don't, well, again, asterisk on everything. Normally you don't want to paint white with just plain white. White can be kind of cold and chalky looking. What I've done is that I've made a lavender color, and I'm going to use that lavender color on parts of this thing. I'm making little curved strokes because this is a rounded top on this. But this is really lavender. If I, let's see, do I have anything white? I don't have anything. Well, here, back of this is kind of white. So this is white here. And if I put that, look how much difference there is between white and the color I'm using. However, when I'm using it up against darker backgrounds, this is contrast. By using this against darker backgrounds, this tends to look white. Now there are some brighter highlights on this. This is just my gesso, my ultramarine blue, and a little touch of alizarin crimson. And a little bit of water, not too much water. You don't want to get it so thin that it will not cover your canvas. You can come down here and kind of roughen the edges, kind of blend them in. It gets darker as it goes around, just by blending them in with my finger there. It gives them a little softer edge. I'm going to pick up a little more blue, a little more alizarin crimson. I'm working in the same area on my palette where I have the lavender. Just ultramarine blue, a little alizarin crimson. I used to use dioxazine purple, but everybody would get crazy with the purple and use too much of it. So this way you have a little more control. So this is just a little bit of, it's a little bit darker as I come around here to this side. Just going to blend. And I'm also going to take this color. I told you I was going to highlight this a little bit. Well, this is a reflected highlight. And I'm just going to drag this across. I don't want a lot, but right where the edge of the pot is, just going to drag that lavender color across, and then just kind of smear it in. There's a lot of reflected light all around us. We don't normally see it because it's just kind of a ubiquitous thing. But it is there. I'm going to rinse my brush. This is just water. It got a little bit too dry. It's getting warmer and drier in my back porch here. But adding just that little touch of highlight gives you a definition of that edge, and it actually makes the shadows look more like shadows. Now I'm going to come back in. I had that yellow and orange going and white for the highlights I used. Just adding a little more gesso to that. I just want a tint. And then right in here, just going to kind of streak it, tap it, smudge it out with my finger. This is where the sun is really hitting on this and giving it a nice bright highlight there. Kind of tap and pull across the top where the sun might be dancing off of this. A little bit over here. Don't want to get too much of this white on there. It's not white, but this tinted white. And then just kind of blend it in so it blends into the shadows there. So let me stop and refocus so that I can show you what I'm going to do on the next part of this. Be right back. Okay, now we're back to the two together. And what I want to do, I can use some of that same kind of light color that I had. There are some places on this pot that look like maybe where salts or something have leached through. And I can just kind of, I'm just skimming this. I'm just lightly skimming the surface of this. Like I said, you want to get things done before you start putting things over top of it. So I'm just skimming there. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that lavender color, the darker lavender color that I had, and just right in here, just a little bit of a hint of reflected light coming in. Want to get some darker shadows in. Now, I don't use black. I just think that it's a cleaner color, a more lively color if I use my dark color. So I'm going to take my ultramarine blue and some burnt umber and a little touch of alizarin crimson, and that makes a really dark shadow color. And right under here, under this little lip, there's a dark shadow. This is a cast shadow, and it goes down behind that other pot. So I can kind of shape that pot. Soften that edge so it's not real harsh. Right at the bottom, wherever anything is sitting on something, you want to have a darker shadow that settles it down. As shadows move away from the thing that's casting them, the shadows get a little bit lighter. Now this casts a shadow back here. Now remember, I'm looking at my reference material, which is right above my head. And I'm just lightly going over that. Soften the edge a little bit. That also helps define the pot in front, making this here kind of a lost and found line. There are shadows back here behind this pot. But this one's up off the ground, so it's a little bit different situation. Right between the pot and the rim of the plant stand. And I'm using just the edge of my brush right here. I'm just using the very edge of my brush. Just kind of dragging that along, softening it with my finger. As an artist, you have to not worry about getting paint all over you. At times I go to lunch and I'm covered in paint. Let's see, where else can I put any of this darker color? So I'm going to come down now and just mix a little bit of that dark color into that dark lavender I had. If you have to pick up water, you can pick it up off of your palette or just a little tiny bit. You don't want it real dark. Now on the ground here, I'm going to use the same brush and I'm going to just kind of roll it back and forth in my hands. Just suggesting the shadows here. Shadows are important. I like shadows because it kind of sets where the sun is. It kind of gives a little texture. A little bit darker shadows right down here in front. These will all be under the planter. So I'm just picking up and kind of mixing on my brush with the really dark color back that I use back here and the little bit lighter color. A lot of people forget to put in the shadows. Now this pot here has a shadow being cast from something else. And I kind of like that shadow. I'm just going to lightly skim this pot. Bring it up. Now whenever a shadow hits something, it has to follow the shape of the thing that it's on. So it comes like this is probably cast from the trees above it. So it goes across the top here and then it comes down. So it comes across and then it comes down, and then it would go underneath and then follow the shape of this pot. Be observant. I tell my students this all the time. Be observant. Look and see what things are doing. Shadows aren't just flat. They have to follow the shape of the thing that they're on. This has got some shadows too. Let me put a little bit more dark right under here. And I know I kind of skip around or forget what I was talking about, but it's really hard to paint and talk at the same time. They're kind of not similar processes of your brain. And that's another thing I wanted to remind you of, is if you are learning how to do this, you know, cut yourself some slack. At this point, if you're learning, you're thinking way too much. And that thinking will get in the way of your painting. You know, when you're learning, you're thinking about what brush to use. What did she say the colors were that she mixed? You know, just a lot of different things. You know, does this look right? You know, oh, that doesn't look. You focus on things that are not important. There's just so much that you're doing and you're not painting. When you can pick up a brush and just start working on it and not thinking about it, or if, like me, all of a sudden you can't talk, that's where you're starting to get into painting. Okay, so basically I have my pots in. I'm going to break away here in a second, and I'm going to look at this, see if there's anything else I need to do. It won't be anything that I haven't showed you, but I will get my sketch on. So I'll be right back, and we'll get this all underpainted so that the final session will be just finishing it. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. What I've done here is I've sketched in with my white chalk, because this is a dark background, and the white will show up better than the charcoal, especially on camera. And I've just sketched in my plant stand here. I've sketched in my plants. Now, one of the things I want you to notice is that when I've sketched these in, I've purposely made irregular shapes. These are not topiaries, they're not cut to a perfect shape or anything. These are just plants that are kind of allowed to grow wild. This one plant here has some tall things. Some of them go off the page. So I've just kind of suggested where those might be. None of this is permanent. It's chalk. I can wipe it right off. But this is just giving me kind of a basic groundwork to figure out where I'm going to put things. I'll start with this. Now, you've probably noticed that I've got like a main thing here and also a main thing there, and then I've got some things sticking out of it. This is all going to be kind of painted at once when I get there. It's called like a mass color that you put in. Underpainting. I will be underpainting here. And then we come in on top and kind of individualize some of those shapes to create leaves and put in some twigs and branches. So this is just basically my guideline. Also, I wanted, if at the end you want to look, I put just a little hint of green in there because this pot sits on the ground. It has a little bit of moss, and that's all I did here. So what I'm going to do is I want to paint in my plant stand here. I'm going to take my burnt sienna, and I can work down in one of those colors that I had that were kind of purpley. A little bit of blue, a little bit of the alizarin crimson, and to this I added just a tiniest touch of gesso to give it kind of a grayed look. Now I'll bring this up so I can show you a bigger version of what I'm going to do. Is that I'm going to be making little strokes like this with this color. Okay, so it's because this part of the plant stand is kind of a rounded wrought iron. So it's going to be little rounded strokes. But it's my blue, my alizarin crimson, and my burnt sienna. Mostly on the burnt sienna side. And tiniest touch of gesso, just that lightens it just a skosh. So I'm going to come in here and just make these little rounded strokes. I can detail them out later. As I come around, I'm going to change the direction of my stroke because it's going around. Your brush strokes are a lot more important than you think. The eye will pick up on the stroke. If I were just to kind of paint this as a line, it wouldn't look rounded. It would look flat. So I'm trying to make my brush strokes a little bit rounded. Come around. Try not to be too much in the picture. It's going to get a little bit smaller as it goes into the back here, because it's moving away. This is underpainting. Going to use the same brush, kind of the same technique. I can clean this up later. Just want to get these in. I think I'll add a little more burnt sienna, a little more blue. Tiny touch of alizarin crimson. Now this is rusted wrought iron here. This one goes behind the pot. I'm adding just a little touch of water because it's starting to get dry. But just a drop. A drop will go a long way. If you have a wet brush in your palette, pick it up off that wet brush. I don't have a wet brush in there right now. The leg, and then here's the back. Just want to show you what I'm doing. Then I'm going to move on. I'll finish putting this in off camera. That way you're not watching me do this the whole time. But I'm just making little overlapping kind of U-shaped strokes. Okay? So now I want to go back here and I want to put in the underpainting for the leaves. Now the plant in the photograph is looks like it's kind of seen better days, so I can always make it look healthier. You know, don't be afraid to do that. Just because it's not in the photograph, you can put it in there. If you want to make this like a bougainvillea or something that has flowers or something, that's up to you. You know, what I've done here is I picked up my Hooker's green, my blue, and a little touch of burnt sienna all on the same brush. And I'm just kind of scumbling this in here. You can pick up a little bit of sap green too. That'll be just a little bit lighter. But I'm just mixing this all on the canvas, patting it. I'm not, you know, sitting there trying to create leaves. I'm trying to create a shape. Okay, this is the sap green. I'll come back later and pick out individual leaves, and I can put in some of the background back in. But just come in and get this in here. Can leave little peek-throughs. Kind of come a little careful around the edge of this plant. There's some leaves that are coming in from behind that I want to put in there. Sap green, Hooker's green, little of the burnt sienna. Create an interesting shape. Sap green, Hooker's green. I can even throw some orange in there if I want to. Just blend it in. Suggest that there's leaves coming off of this. You know, right now you're in the kind of the foundation of this. Throw a little bit of red in there. This is my Cad Red Light. Throw that in there. Because, you know, it could be different types of plants in there. I just want you to experiment, to play. Nobody's going to die. A lot of my students hear me say that several times, you know, during the course of the lesson. Nobody's going to die. All right, I'm going to do a similar thing over on this one. This one is a little more on the straight side, so I'm going to be kind of just pulling down same colors. It's mostly going to be the burnt sienna and green. Just pull those over. Throw an occasional bit of blue, especially down at the bottom. Just want to get this based in. And I know it may be a little bit hard to see because it's dark on dark, but when we come back after this is dried, we'll start picking out leaves and putting in some stems, and hopefully we'll get this finished up. Just create an interesting background for this. Kind of scumble, pulling in Hooker's green, pick up some sap green too, little burnt sienna. Just brush mix, get it all in there. Okay, so I'm going to look at this, see what I have to do, and get it ready for the next part of this. So I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.